Hello and welcome to another edition of On Jamz Extra. It's been a while since we've had one of these, so I'm thankful to be back in the saddle and have with me members of the group Fighting for Frequency. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Hey!
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
If you would like to go around the table and introduce yourselves.
Sure, Dave.
All right, I'm Dave.
I'm Chris.
I'm Adam.
Brandon.
And we're missing our drummer, Brody. He lives about an hour away. Couldn't make it.
As long as it's not like Spinal Tap and you have a drummer that dies all the time.
We don't know where he is.
What's the new one's name again? Okay, so Wednesday we'll have a new one.
Wednesday you'll have a new one. So how did Fighting for Frequency get started? How did the five of you get together?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been playing music for a long time, some longer than others because some of us are older than others. But I've been playing guitar since I was 13 and then started singing not very long ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and trying to find my voice. And I would just do it in my living room and, just kind of working on that and building confidence. But eventually one day I was in my backyard, and I live in a certain area, like right outside New Orleans. And I hear somebody's voice and I'm like, man, that sounds real familiar. And it turns out that it was Dave's voice. And I recognized Dave's voice because me and Dave grew up together since we were, knee high to grasshoppers. Mm-hmm. And, we've just known each other forever. And I'm like, man, that sounds like Dave. So I peeked my head over the fence, and sure enough, it is Dave. And basically it was like, what are you doing here? And he turns around. He's like, what are you doing here? And it turns out we lived behind each other without really knowing because he had gone to college. I'd gone off to, do other things like work and play music, this and that. And we just kind of drifted. But in the end, ended up buying houses right back to each other. So it was very home improvement-esque with the howdy neighbor, like over the fence. Hey. But
you just need to get out and meet your neighbors more often.
Right. I know all the ones in the front of my house. Apparently I was looking at the wrong side. But so anyway, long story short, we just started talking, catching up, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm jamming with this guy, Chris. We got some songs, and I think Chris was like playing, they were both kind of doing a share of guitar and bass and drums, and like maybe they were singing with somebody else and just trying to get something together. I was like, well, I got some songs. Let's come jam and see what happens. And it started off as a acoustic little side project, not really knowing where it was going, to all of a sudden we have a vision of, big rock sound. And that's kind of more my background. Chris is a little more pop. Dave's a little more, I guess
classical, maybe
not classical. Well, he's more like classical piano, but like he listens to like a lot of like not like I listen to like hard rock. Dave was more like the Beatles kind of rock. And
I'm more the classic.
Yeah, and I did like more hard rock, heavy metal. Randon's more heavy metal rock, kind of like that. But I took a lot of the good stuff they were working with and stuff I had, and like, let's layer guitars here and make it big, and give it fullness and breathe life into it, that kind of deal. So, we met Randon at one of our shows one time. Actually, do you want to tell the story?
I mean, it's a pretty short story. These guys were my first local show in New Orleans. I had just moved to town, and about 2 or 3 days into living here, I had already heard of the local venue, Southport Hall, and started following their calendar because I knew as soon as I moved in, like, that's where the scene's going to be at. That's where I'm going to meet people. That's where I'm going to make friends. So I just showed up by myself because I was new to town and hardly knew anyone, to a show. And these guys were playing and a couple other bands were playing. I'd never heard of any of them. I'd only heard of the venue. And I saw the bill and saw the flyer and thought, this looks like it might be a rock show. Like, I didn't even know really what to expect to hear. And Fighting for Frequency was obviously like the most killing band of the night. So I made a point to go out of my way and talk to all of them. And a few days later, I think it was Chris that hit me up and said they needed a fill-in on guitar for a show. And long story short, I ended up sticking around for more than one show.
Yeah, he was too good to pass up on. He's got great chops for his age.
So how'd you come up with the name Fighting for Frequency?
It's something we talk to a lot. We'd say a lot in conversation, particularly when it comes to tone and sonically, about, mixes and how, like two instruments can be fighting for frequency. So let, like your bass carry your low end, your guitars don't have to have a ton of low end, because let the bass do that. Otherwise they'll be fighting for that frequency and they kind of get cluttered, and you don't get the true essence of what they're about. So it was just a phrase I'd kind of said over and over again as we were developing our sound and our tone and figuring out what instruments and amps like we wanted to use and what our sound was going to be, you know. And then I guess just hearing it over and over again, I think Chris kind of like latched onto it and talked about it as a name. And then I guess we kind of started looking for reasons to use it. And that, you know, then you can take the symbolic version of it where in a world full of music and so much noise and so much media, you're literally fighting for frequency. You have to get on Spotify. You have to get on, you know, every platform out there. You still have to do the good old fashioned touring and playing shows, you know, and you have to just do things like this to get your voice heard and to be known, you know? So it kind of worked both ways. So we've stuck with it. It's a mouthful. We like alliteration, but we are now fighting for frequency, brought to you by the letter F. So,
So how would you best describe your sound? You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but how would you best describe it to somebody who's not heard fighting for frequency?
I guess it reflects, I mean, I'll just say it reflects our age, I guess. We grew up with 90s and like coming off of the arena rock and, you know, power metal, and grew up with 90s rock and where big rock sound was still a thing. And that's just kind of what always keeps us rooted around there. It's kind of our, you know, center field. But anything else y'all would like to add?
I feel like you're calling me old. That's all. But I mean, Chris had a good thing on this too, where I mean, we took a meld, especially with our different backgrounds. As like we said at the beginning, you know, Adam came in from this real melodic metal, like powerhouse guitar background, and Chris and I came in from more of a softer background. Chris was a more energetic soft, and mine is like anything that is depressing music was my wheelhouse. So
don't listen to Dave's music on a bad day.
Yeah, if you listen to all the stuff I write on myself, it's very much like
are you having a rough time?
Here you go.
Do you want to talk, Dave?
It's perfect for you to go to sleep to.
So how many of Dave's songs do you kick out when he presents them to the band?
Oh,
we don't want to get into that.
All of them. Except it's funny because I'll present a song and they'll be like, hey, let's pick this up. And then all of a sudden Adam takes it, and Adam's got this ungodly ability to take any song that like Chris or I are random write and mold it into a high energy fighting for frequency, like power structure.
Something with anthem-like qualities, something that people can sing back or dance around to, you know.
They give me too much credit. It's a group effort. We have like, you know, more songwriting done by one person or the other at times, but it's all, you know, it wouldn't be what it was if it wasn't for everybody, you know. Randon throws guitar licks in there that totally enhance the song. Chris and Dave both wrote a bunch of stuff that we used on our first album, and some on our, you know, upcoming album.
But
it's a group effort. But speaking of that, you have some exciting news.
Exciting news. What could that be? So
well, don't spill it just yet.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Okay,
so stay tuned in if you want to
stay tuned.
We're still in foreplay. Sorry.
That's right.
There you go.
Well, talk about you talked about it, but talk about the band's writing process. You have 5 members. Do all of you contribute? Is one person really heavy with the lyrics, another person really heavy with developing melodies and notes?
Yeah, a lot of the times. So when it initially started, we were kind of working from a backlog, and Chris and Dave had songs, I had songs, and we just kind of brought them together. And I would try to respect like what they were going for and where it came from as much as I could, and I would just take the approach of like what I was writing with my songs and apply it to theirs. And basically, I'll just record a demo and send it to them, and be like, "Hey, see if you can learn this, and we'll work on it." And then we start jamming the song, and eventually it will kind of lend itself to like, oh, it'd be cool if we did a stop here, or Randon will write a guitar fill that, you know, I'm too close to the song to realize this was the most obvious guitar fill to go here, you know, but Randon will be like, what if I do this, or I change this pattern? And, you know, so everybody contributes a little, but a lot of the times you know, there's, as far as, we're still finding our groove, I guess, as far as everybody writing. But initially it started with me, Chris, and Dave writing. We're more kind of like complete songwriters where we'll write a whole song and just kind of present it. We'll chop it up from there. And as opposed to everybody sitting in a room and just, collaborating. Like that part comes later after a song's been established. I mean, we're all just, I keep alluding to our age. We're all just have jobs and, just kids and stuff. So we don't have a whole lot of time to sit around in a practice room and write as much as we used to. I was doing that a lot when I was a teenager, but now it's more about just, hey, here's a song. What do y'all think? Okay, if you like it, let's move from there.
I mean, I think that kind of process is extremely efficient and tends to work better in a group setting anyway. I mean, I don't have as many years of experience doing this as anybody else at this table, but I mean, since I was 14, starting bands and been in a lot of bands before I joined these guys, it was the same thing. It was usually I was doing all the songwriting myself and then was bringing it to a handful of people that I trusted to realize the full potential of the piece. But all of the pieces of the puzzle were there already. There was a clear and distinct beginning and end and progress of a song. And then it was a matter of how can we touch this up and give it the further details and breadth that it needs.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think that our process is extremely efficient.
It works. Time is key with us, and it saves us a buttload of time doing that for sure. But I mean, it's also, I think like where Randon's at now, or maybe was a few years ago, is where I was at musically, where like I didn't really have a voice and didn't try to sing. So I was orchestrating a lot of music, and that helped lay the foundation for how to just compose musically. But as I've gotten older and I've been through more experiences, and whether it's like through a dream, I'm writing a song, or I'm vacuuming and I'm humming a melody and realize like, what is that? Oh, that's mine. Cool. Like, let me do something with that.
It's the vacuum song.
Or like, I just have really lyrics that are, deep to me, and I try to apply a melody to them. Like the songs now are much more like the composition musically happens a little easier, but the songs are more kind of written from the heart now. Like it's rather than like, I'm gonna sit down and write a song about this. It's just like, it's cathartic, experiences just coming out of us, and just, we sit down and write a song, and then the details, I've always felt that a song should be able to be like a voice and at least contemporary, like kind of like, music like we do, should be like a voice and a piano, or a voice and a guitar, and it's got to be able to stand on those principles. And if it doesn't, it doesn't really have the legs to do so. And from there, you add drums and bass and everything else, So I've always tried to write like that. I don't play a whole lot of keys, but I do play a whole lot of guitar, and I just try to write them all on a stripped down version of just me and a guitar. And if that works, then we'll start adding layers, we'll start adding solos, we'll start adding bass and keys and everything else. But it's got to work just from those two fundamentals,
Yeah. And I find just to add in that Adam writes really poetically too. So he could find an emotion or a moment and really expand that and pull the listener into that moment to where they're feeling that specific emotion or that specific situation, and which is a really interesting ability to do, just to like find like this one tiny emotion and immerse you in it. So I find like that about your songs. Like I really like that quality the most.
I appreciate that.
Your debut EP, A Million Miles Away, 6-song EP. Talk about that EP.
That EP took 2 years because it was never supposed to be an EP. It was supposed to be.
It was a journey.
It was supposed to be us recording some songs and like just some demos, so we had something to like sit back and listen to. And I talked to my buddy Ryan, and he does a lot of recording. He's an engineer, has his own studio, and he was like, "Man, how about I come over and just bring some stuff and I'll help y'all out." And he came over and brought some stuff and helped us out. And it turned out like, wait, I really like this. I think I need to help y'all out more. And it just became this where he transported half of his studio over to our practice space, and we ended up tracking most of the stuff ourselves. It's kind of has a, I think we're finding ourselves on that album, and maybe some sonically it's not as polished and it's a little amateur. But I think it stands. I'm proud of it. I think it kind of reflects a band going through exactly what we went through. It was just like, oh crap, we're becoming a band. Oh crap, we're recording an album, or an EP. So I think it's very organic, and I like the fact that it doesn't sound like, the DI guitars that everybody uses and program drums. Like it sounds like an actual band to me, and that's something we've always stood on, is that. I would almost sacrifice a little bit of quality for just some live, like some emotion to actually hear, like when I hear a guitar solo, I can almost see the guitarist sitting in the booth, or sitting next to the, console with his amp mic'd up in the booth and just like ripping through it and hearing the, the actual reverb before you add more reverb onto it. And just like, I like that kind of approach to music. But the goal line for us always felt a million miles away. And that song's not really about that, but it always just felt like, oh, well, let's just jam. Oh, like maybe we'll become a band and we'll set a different goal. Let's just write some songs. Okay, maybe we have enough to write an album. Let's just record some demos. Maybe we'll do. And every goal we've set has been that, until it's finally gotten us to the point where we realize that, like, we do have a vision. We have something we're trying to do with this seriously. And so a million miles away is not so far away now, but it's still a journey,
Well, the 6 songs that made the EP, were those the only 6 songs you had, or did you have a whole bunch of others, but you just narrowed it down to those 6?
The latter, yes. Yeah, we have way too many songs. We leave songs by the wayside all the time.
And the songs on the cutting room floor might end up on future albums, but realistically, time is of the essence, right? And we had to make a decision to say, well, it's already taken us a long time recording. Maybe we should whittle it down to just maybe 5 or 6 of the best songs, and we'll just save other songs for future albums.
Yeah. And as we change and grow too, we realize that the stuff we left behind might not have been the most appropriate stuff anyway. It might have ended up just being filler, even though we liked it at the time. We'll write something better, write something more definitively us, or something more creative, and something that lends itself to the fact that we added Dave on keys now. Now we have more options, Randy can solo like nobody's business, so we have more options.
Well, if you were to re-record the album today, how much of it would you change, if any?
Structurally, not a whole lot. There's maybe like some courses where maybe we would chop one in half just to make some anticipation, but I liked where the album ended up. I think I would just I think it would be more of a tone thing. I would use different amps and different guitars. I would have done a lot of things. I would have loved, obviously, a second chance to re-record vocals on there, just because I didn't know. I still don't know anything, but compared to what I didn't know back then, good God, I just knew nothing about singing. I just opened my mouth and hoped something good came out. And now I've really been setting guitar aside and focusing on trying to learn how to actually sing and find my voice. And I feel like I've done much better with that. So that's really what I would like to change. But I've always loved the lyrics and the vocals and the melodies, and I would keep most of those. I would keep a lot of it, but thankfully we cannot record that album, because if we did, I would re-record it, and then we re-record it again and again.
Right.
I would never be happy.
I mean,
we could record that album and call it 2 Million Miles Away, and we have a
sequel.
And
there's certain parts of the songs on that album too that, since that album's come out, the live versions of those songs have changed completely. Like Still Standing, for instance. When we added keys into the band, Still Standing got revamped. So did portions of Fast Forward, to add in another layer of texture that we tried to fill in on that album using guitars. And that's one of the great things about the second album now, is we've actually been able to find and fill in that texture, so that we have a round of music on this next album that's grown into a better, like a more mature level of music than we were dealing with when we were on the journey, that is encompassed in the artwork on the first EP. It's a million miles away.
The first million miles.
Right.
Yeah. But so when we do a live album, maybe you'll get the dynamic changes of all the songs as they've grown, because always got to keep changing, keep growing, to get better.
We could do a hip hop version of, some of the songs too. That's not a terrible idea. Brandon, get on that.
I'll get my suit and we'll do a jazz version.
Me and Chris will dance.
Well, since you kind of mentioned it earlier, what are you working on next?
So right now, we've taken this opportunity, since we haven't been touring and we haven't been playing shows due to the situation everybody knows about.
There's a situation?
There's a situation. Oh, that's right. This is new. This may be news to everyone out there, but musicians haven't been. So since we haven't been able to play lately, what we've been doing is we hit the studio, and so we've been tracking our instruments, and we're wrapping up pretty soon our second album. This one will have 7 original songs on it, and we've thrown in a cover too. And for those of you out there, our fans, are freaks, FREAQ, freaks. Freaks. So for those of you out there who know, it's not the cover that you've ever seen us play. So we'll keep you guessing as to what cover song is going to end up on the album. But you might be seeing us sooner rather than later. Our album release party is going to be, drum roll.
Where's our drummer when we need him?
No, we don't even have the drummer here. Brody, this is for you. So it's going to be September 18th at Southport Music Hall in New Orleans. And it's going to be an awesome time. Even if you're not from New Orleans, I encourage you, make the drive. You want to see this show. We're going to put on a great show.
Yes, we always do. I can, yeah.
We have fun.
We like our music,
We'll
but
have fun.
our live show encompasses something totally different than what you'll hear on our album. It's just there's so much energy, and just we take great pride in just kicking people in the face with our music. So it's we like to have fun.
You mentioned this album has a cover song, and I'm not asking you to tell the cover song, but how do you decide what song you want to cover to include on the album? How did you go through that process?
The totally most illogical and spontaneous way anybody does. Obviously.
Can I take this one?
Yeah,
sure.
All right.
That was like poor.
So,
I guess Dave earned this
we
one.
discussed about Dave's songs getting scrapped, right? So we talked about that earlier. So if we go back to the original EP, there's actually 2 songs that we initially were going to put onto the original EP, and we decided that we wanted to rewrite them before we got onto it. So we started working on rewriting, and then we came back, and one of those songs was going to be on the next album. And then we decided, once we got into the studio and we actually laid it down, and we decided that there's something that wasn't sitting right about it on the album. And so we sat outside and we're like, man, you know what song I love? And pretty much everybody sat right outside the studio, and we were just sort of sitting around like the chairs where there's a little campfire area. I won't.
Say the name.
And we were like,
Nobody's watching. You can say the name.
right. And, we were like, and so they said,
I'll delete the video after it's over. Don't worry.
right. So
In case someone take my shirt off.
let's do this. No, so immediately everybody goes, man, I love that song. I love that song. And he goes, well, I know it. Like the version of it that we put together. Said, I know it, and I can put it down. And Brody was like, dude, I love it. Let's do it. And so we scrapped the song that we were, felt wasn't sitting right.
Dave song.
Dave song.
That's actually the name of the song.
Yeah, pretty much. And then threw that song on. We literally called an audible after we had pre-produced the entire album.
Yeah, it was the day before Brody was supposed to go in to finish drums. We threw this at him, and so he went in the next day and laid down the drums for this particular
because
song.
Brody is that good of a drummer. Also, I want to give a shout out to Brody. I've never seen a drummer track an entire album without scratch tracks, just listening to a metronome. He went and learned all our material, which is brand spanking new to him, and learned it, memorized it, got into it. He'd be in there like playing and singing along to himself like quietly, and he was just phenomenal. So that's another reason people should come see us live, because our drum game is so official right now.
Yes, yes, very official.
Uncanny drummer.
Yeah.
Did the COVID shutdown accelerate your work on this album?
I would say it decelerated.
Yeah.
We went from all being able to be in the studio to kind of help give feedback to each other and to give ideas, to being sort of separated just because the studio, they didn't really want a whole lot of us in there all at once. I know I was sort of social distancing from everyone because I had taken a job in the medical, at least at a medical field.
Still got COVID.
Yep, still got COVID. So I had to distance from everybody for a while, and so that it slowed things down drastically. And then finally, we were able to come back together. And
we also had, when we were in the middle of track, and we had an engineer, Chris. They all at different times during our scheduled, our planned visits to the studio, would have to quarantine, and would get exposed and have to, and that would basically put a halt to production for 2 weeks right there. And so that definitely did not help the process
of moving along.
So.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a strange dichotomy. I mean, the downtime from being able to play shows that the pandemic forced us into motivated us to use our downtime to start making an album. But at the same time, it's like they just said, the pandemic itself also slowed down and stretched out the process of making an album and how long that would usually take under normal circumstances.
Yeah. So
you mentioned the album release party September 18th, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you having live shows prior to that, and are you teasing some of the new songs at the live shows?
So the plan right now is not to play in New Orleans until the album release party, because we don't want to spoil the surprises that we have in store. So we're likely to maybe get on the road a little bit, tour a little bit.
All right, just head west to Texas, okay? Come on over to Texas.
So
that may or may not be the plan.
Funny enough, you know how we like alliteration. We are currently planning a Texas Takeover tour. There's your alliteration for the day. So the TTT.
Brought to you by the letter T.
Yeah.
We will head your way.
All right, just come all the way out west, Texas, all the way out west.
In the town of
You
El
got it.
Paso.
No, further north. So you're trying to keep it a secret to the local crowd, but test it out in other audiences to get feedback on it.
Definitely, yeah. It's more of a rather than a secret thing. It's more of a something novel about having us come back after having not played for almost a year and a half, and for all the people who've been asking us, well, when are you going to start playing again? When are you going to start playing again? It'll be sort of a special treat. If we play 3 or 4 times before then, it's going to feel a little less special. So we want the album release party to feel special.
And I mean, that's also not to downplay it at all, because we may have a few little teasers out there that may or may not be in the works. But we also the album release party is going to be ridiculous and special, all in one breath. Is a lot of planning is going into this. A lot of extra work, and it's going to be novel.
Yeah, we take this CD release parties very seriously, because when we call them CD release parties, we truly intend to have a party.
Right.
Like, it's not just a show. Right. It's the goal is, I mean, every show we feel like should be a party, and the whole goal is to present a party and make people want to be a part of that. That's how you really hook people in. You get them to appreciate your music and our live presence. But with our CD release parties, our first one was a smashing success, and we did a lot of really interesting things that nobody around here really does, at least. But we plan to top that and make it even more interesting and more fun, and it will be a party all out. We like people to leave our album release party and just be like, that was an experience, that was not just a show where I just came and supported my friends, or that was an experience. This was like a thing I'll remember, for years to come. So, and hopefully one day when we're, doing big, great things, people will be like, I was there at their second album release party. That shit was crazy. I don't know if I can curse or not. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay.
What's the best advice that you were given as a band?
The best advice.
So I'll
never listened to it. So
I can tell you the best advice that we could give as a band.
Oh yeah, go ahead. You have a nugget of wisdom.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of things that we touch on too. One of the things that we pride ourselves on as a band, and really as people, is a mutual respect and support for everybody else in the music industry as well, across the board, because. And especially you see it during times like in 2020, during the pandemic, that it's really important for us to all support each other and come together. And so we do a lot of preaching of supporting each other and supporting fellow musicians. And with that, we've learned kind of the hard way and pass that on, is that you get what you give in that atmosphere. And that goes across the board on everything. When you're, don't piss off the sound guy. Is what it comes down to.
Yes.
When they like you and you like them, it makes your shows 1,000 times better. It makes your work 1,000 times better. It makes the music 1,000 times better, and it makes the atmosphere. It allows us to get that fighting for frequency vibe and feel out and have a party. And with that being said, you get what you give. You also, in this, don't get frustrated as you go through trials and tribulations as a band, because there are times where it's hard, and it's hard work. And I can tell anybody it's hard work. And one of the things I can say that I think we've all done during the pandemic, during the shutdown, is we'll come out of this as much better musicians than we were, because we all will work at it and continue to work at it. So yeah, that's my nugget of wisdom.
I think the best thing
there.
he said out of all that was don't piss off the sound guy.
Don't piss
That is a
Don't
real
piss
thing.
off the sound
Like
guy.
that is, yeah.
Don't do that.
I can't remember if you asked us
Chris.
what's the best advice we got or could give, but to every musician out there, just don't piss off the sound guy. Yeah.
Or the lighting guy, because
Yeah.
if you sound good but you're in the dark, that's not good.
Well, Dave, you mentioned it. It's hard work. It's really hard work. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people who listen to indie bands or just listen to musicians, they don't realize the hard work that is put into what you do. And especially indie bands as yourself, you have to do everything. You got to book your tours. You got to do the promotions. You got to do everything that Taylor Swift doesn't have to do.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. That is it.
The behind the scenes
so
work
many
is
roles.
Yeah,
And that's
besides the
right.
scenes
Like
work
the
is
whole
growing.
management side of everything and just the promotion and the social media and all that is just one side of it. I mean, you listen to a 30, 40-minute album and you don't realize not only did it take, a year to track and mix and, just master all that or more possibly, but just the time it took to write it and to hammer it out on stage and realize this works for that song, this doesn't, and like hammering out in a practice room and just that's just the music side. I mean, there's so much that goes into this thing. And then, you want to go party with your friends after you play a show but nobody sees you getting there 3 hours ahead of time, unloading all your crap and, loading everything back up and everybody wants to come shake hands and, oh, buy you a drink. It's like, I'd be way happy if you carried my amp for me. Like it is hard work. It's a lot of work. It's very little, it's not very lucrative. It's very, little monetary reward, but it is gratifying to play shows and eventually see people singing your choruses and, coming up to you and be like, man, I really liked when you did this solo here and you like did this style or this and that. And it's just like, wow, you were actually paying attention, and like that kind of thing is gratifying. You just hang on to that for the hope that one day it'll happen on a, national or global scale,
Or, oh my God, when someone says, oh, this particular song in your set reminded me of this band, and it's exactly the band that inspired that song.
Right. Or I've been worshiping that band since I was 12. Like, yes. Yeah. Yeah. The reward right now is not, money. It's just the enjoyment of doing what you do. We still love to do this,
Interpersonal connections.
Yeah, you want to play to people, right? You don't want to have sound checks forever. You want to play to people, you want to have fans or freaks.
Yeah, and there's practically no better feeling than when you're playing a song that you wrote, and you get to a chorus or you get to the refrain of that song, and the whole audience is right there shouting it back with you.
Yeah.
And there's an energy that.
Well, talk about that high. Talk about that high that you get as a musician when the crowd is singing the song with you.
Oh, it's all part of the party, man. That is part of the party is that, that's when it's like you don't even have to try. Because, even if you're playing to 3 people or 300 people, like you have to look like you're enjoying yourself and be professional and present that party either way. It's like, hey, there's 3 people here. Well, those 3 people are going to have the time of their lives.
Yeah.
Like,
And
but when there's hundreds of people and they're starting to learn your words and they're singing things to you, or you're like playing a solo and they're sticking their hands out and screaming at you, like that kind of thing. That's when it's like you don't even have to try. This is like that's the culmination of everything you've been working for, and the party has become official. They got the invite, you got the invite, we're all here, like we're passing the bottle around, like it's that's when it's really the most gratifying thing right there. I mean, because you sit back and listen to an album, you can be proud of that years later and all this and that can kind of in a way be a legacy, but what you'll really remember is just the experience of playing live. It's what makes it all worthwhile. It's what's killing all the musicians right now who have not been able to play. I mean, so many people just, God, I miss live music. And then they stop and like, oh God, how do you feel about that? It's like, man, we really want to play too. Like we miss it much more than you think. It's not just a job to us. It's it's like it's a way of life, right?
Right.
I mean,
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah. So we're chasing the high again. Hopefully soon.
If people want to learn more about Fighting for Frequency, where can they go?
So if, we have YouTube. We have quite a few videos up, including 2 videos that will sort of tease out some things that might be on the upcoming album. When we were pre-producing the album, we decided, hey, let's have somebody come in and video us. while we're recording, and this will just sort of be a teaser. So we've released those. So go to YouTube. And also we have, of course, our social media to stay up to date. We've got lots of great things coming. We've got Instagram where you can find just some snippets of things. And also fighting4frequency.com. You can even use the number 4 there, fighting4frequency.com, where you can just learn more about us. And we're always happy to have you join the fight with us. And
we're on all media platforms as
Yeah,
far as like
everything I can
Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. I mean,
Go follow us on Twitter. If anybody has any suggestions on who we should start a fun little Twitter war with, shoot it out.
we're always looking for a fight.
We're always looking
Yeah.
for
Start a
aching
fight
for
with
it.
Trapped. I mean, we played with him.
The new album's coming out in September. Any singles going to be released prior to the whole album?
Yes, and actually tonight we're going to be talking with the person who's going to be filming our music video. We're going to be filming a music video in July, and we'll probably be releasing our video from in August, maybe about a month before the album release party, just to kind of get everybody more excited about our music and what we're about to bring to the party.
I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your evening to do the interview. Much appreciated. Looking forward to hearing the new album.
No, thank you.
Awesome.
We really
we'll
appreciate
send you
you.
a signed copy.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, we will. We keep our word. That will happen. We just need your address and your credit card number. No, thank you for having us, though, very much.
We really
This has been
appreciate
a privilege. It was a lot of fun.
I appreciate it. Hang on, guys. I want to thank everybody for watching and thank everybody for tuning in to the show and Fighting for Frequency. Next week, Yard of Blondes will be joining me. We'll be talking about their brand new album. Until next week, have a great week. And you can also tune into the radio show, On Jamz.
I saw it. I let these dudes.